The DGR Women's Caucus is honored to present this interview with Miriam Ben-Shalom, veteran lesbian activist and contributor to the anthology Female Erasure: What You Need to Know About Gender, Politics, War on Women, the Female Sex, and Human Rights. Miriam's contribution to the anthology is entitled Milwaukee Pride Parade strips veteran lesbian activist Miriam Ben-Shalom of Grand Marshal honors and a personal statement. And now to our interview. Miriam, it is so good to have the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you for being here for this conversation.
My pleasure.
I would like to ask you about what forms your community activism has taken over your many years of service.
Well, first and foremost, I was probably best known for challenging the United States Army. This was when there was a ban. This was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I actually became the first openly homosexual person, begin quote, end quote, homosexual person, to be reinstated into service. And for the longest time, I was the only one they acknowledged. However, after that, the Army challenged it. We ended up going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court declined to hear it without prejudice, which basically means if I could find an attorney to represent me, I could actually go back, because I never got a discharge the second time around. I was released from the custody of the Army as an erroneous enlistment. After that, I went and I founded a veterans organization, and I worked in my community for gay, lesbian, bisexual rights. I've been an advocate for these civil rights for years. What happened, not this year, but last year, is my Facebook page, you're allowed to say what you want as long as you don't be vulgar, as long as you don't get insulting or cast aspersions on a person's personal integrity. As long as you're civil, I don't care what you say. There was an individual who said, and it wishes to be referred to as it, so I'm not being insulting, who said it was a dragon, and it appears to have a full-body tattoo. And I foolishly said, oh, my God, would you want to shower next to something like that? I had no idea at the time that it, previous to being a dragon, was a male identifying as trans. So I was going to be the Grand Marshal for Milwaukee's Pride Parade, but all males. Somebody went online and noticed that there was controversial statements about people who identify as trans, and they accused me of being transphobic, and they took away the Grand Marshal's position. Before that time, I can't say that I was a strong advocate on behalf of people who identify as trans, but I didn't think they should be discriminated against. As a result, I have to say, tip of the hat, and thank you very much to Milwaukee's Pride Parade Committee, because they turned me into the activist I am today. I am a woman who works on behalf of ensuring the safety of women and children, who works on behalf of the human rights of women and children, and who works to challenge the fake science and the idea that men can become women and women can become men. I fight to make sure people understand that biology is not bigotry. Am I transphobic? No, I don't think trans people ought to be discriminated against. They ought to have the same human rights as everybody else. But, men in dresses don't belong in women's locker rooms. They don't have the right to take a woman's place on a sports team. Oh, thank you, Olympic Committee. What stupidity. They don't have a right to take a woman's place at a woman's college or to take a woman's scholarship. I fight because I see the trans juggernaut as working to literally erase women, to erase our culture, who we are, even the very words we use for our bodies.
And
I'm not a front hole.
So that moment when you were dishonored and removed from the Grand Marshal position, this really changed the way that you've been an activist over the years?
Yes, it did. look, I'm going to be 70 years old, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like hope that maybe I could just retire and maybe go camping and go fishing. I also hunt, so I was looking forward to maybe going hunting. And I still do it, but I don't have as much time. This past year has been the year of my discontent. I've traveled, a bit and done some speaking. I also helped found an organization along with Kaylee Triller-Haver, Women Across the Aisle, or Hands Across the Aisle, Women in Coalition, which is a coalition of conservative women, and I don't know what to call us, women from my side of the aisle, whether lesbian or not, you call us progressive. And we are working on this issue. No money, no funding, just the intelligence, the skills, and the power of women. And we have been doing pretty well in terms of having people ask us for letters of support, because I'd like to think that this coalition represents that great amorphous mass of human beings that are stuck in the middle again. You have the alt-left, the demagogic alt-left, the demagogic alt-right, and then there's a whole bunch of us that are in the middle, right? We don't know. Maybe we haven't been educated. Maybe we haven't heard. And I see it as my job as a teacher, a former teacher of the English language and a teacher of 37 years, to try and provide solid, decent, non-biased information to those of us that are in the middle who may not know on the trans issue.
Yes, and one of the things that you said just earlier in this interview speaks to just basic reality, that biological reality is that there are males and there are females, and that you absolutely cannot change your sex by creating, as you said, a front hole.
Well, what bothers me is I don't know. I think it is a form of mental illness right now. There is no known medical reason for this. They like to talk about lady brains and men brains, and the science just isn't there. Okay, I have read every bit of science that I could come up with, and there really is no scientific or biological basis for this. So I see it as onogynephilia, body, what's the term, dysphoria?
Dysphoria, yes.
And it's why is nobody looking to see what can be done to help these people be comfortable with the body they were born in? There's nothing wrong with their bodies.
Yeah.
So it has to be something else. I mean, you cannot, just by using cosmetic surgery, you can't change your sex. Every cell in a man's body is XY. Every cell in a female's body is XX. You can't change that.
And then there's that biological reality, and then there's the cultural reality that we live in a rape culture, that we live in a place and a patriarchy where we really must insist upon safe space for women and girls. Safe space.
Well, what bothers me is they claim that no trans person has ever, attacked or violated a woman, and there's plenty of information out there. Out of my panties now, they say this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen are a couple of sites that are keeping track of things that happen. And the problem is you have a couple of very wealthy males who identify as trans funding this, as well as some national organizations. And I wish somehow or another that there would be a couple of wealthy persons, either from my side of the aisle or the other side of the aisle, as the case may be, that would help us be able to get the word out about the lies that are being bandied about by the trans community and their activists. Now, I don't say all trans people do this, by the way, but it seems to me that there are an awful lot who are bandying about just vicious lies and threatening to kill women. There was one person, anonymous, what a great person, doesn't have the courage of his convictions to post under his real name, and I always do. I don't use a pseudonym or a nom de plume, that he thought it would be fun to go and kill TERFs and stuff them and have them used as ornaments in trans girls' houses. He thought it would be fun to have cis girls, little girls, hunt them down and then harvest their organs to be sold for charities for, males identifying as trans who wanted to use those organs as transplants in their bodies. And you wonder why we don't want these men in our spaces? But how do you get the word out?
It's very difficult when you consistently are deplatformed.
Thank you, left. The left has sold us out, and I get criticized all the time from women who are on the left because I will work with conservatives, and I have spoken because of the Heritage Foundation, which invited me. And what I find is very interesting is not one conservative organization has ever tried to convert me, has ever tried to change me, has ever been insulting towards me. In fact, they've been extremely respectful, and they have listened, unlike people from the left. So, those who criticize me can just take it and shove it as far as I'm concerned. I really don't give a damn what they think. I don't care.
It's baffling. It is disheartening to see that difference in the way that you've been treated by these two different sides of the aisle. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about Hands Across the Aisle and the work that Hands Across the Aisle does. You already said that there have been requests to write letters, I believe, or?
Oh, yes. The latest letter that we have written is to challenge this silliness in California that it would make it a jailable offense under a hate crime or hate speech law to misgender somebody. We're writing a letter to the people in support of the people who are challenging that law. But I find that so disingenuous. Some guy in a dress, I have to say she, and yet women are called a vast plethora of vile names, cunt, bitch, whore, slut, and that's not hate language? How is it that to misgender somebody would be a jailable offense, but men can continue to use vile slurs against women, and that's not hate language? I'm confused. You got to help me out here.
I'm very confused by that too. It seems that it's a culture gone mad.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that you had a letter that it was a response, and I don't know if this is through Hands Across the Aisle. I believe it is, about the transgender exclusion from the military and position on that.
Yes, look, if you have a bunion, you can be kept out of the military. If you have flat feet, you can be kept out of the military. There are a wide variety of medical conditions that exclude you from service. If you look into the rules on it, there's a whole list of things. And one of the things is if you need to take medication on a daily basis, all right? So somebody who might need insulin because they're a diabetic would be medically discharged from service. If somebody has lupus, they would be medically discharged from service. Okay, many of these, whether males or females identifying as trans, they would be taking hormones on a daily basis. If you're in a combat position, you can't say to your enemy, hey, stop shooting at me, I have to take my hormones now. If it's a person who's post-op, they need to dilate a certain orifice on a daily basis or it heals shut because it is literally an open wound. If you're out in the field for 6 months, how are you going to maintain the hygiene and everything else? Furthermore, and I don't think this is true, but trans activists say it is, that 45% of trans people, have either tried to commit suicide or been very suicidal. You're going to give a person like that a gun? Really? It may be that there's one trans person here or one trans person there who could serve, but you're going to place everybody else at risk because of the one here or the one there. Furthermore, nobody asked military women how they would feel having a swinging dick in their barracks. Nobody.
That's and so thank you for your comments about that. I mean, you've been in the military. You were excluded from the military simply for being a lesbian and saying that I am an out lesbian. And
and I wasn't accused of misconduct either. The Army admitted that I didn't ogle eye up or otherwise bother any other female enlisted person.
Right.
I was a drill sergeant. Let me tell you, if there was something like that, some guy identifying as trans who was not going to have surgery, he wouldn't be in my women's barracks.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Right. And then, as you said, nobody's asked women about what their position is or their comfort when serving in the military is about this.
When Obama did his executive order, all well and good, but he never asked women what they thought. He never thought of the ramifications of what it was that he did, how it would affect Title IX, how it would affect the basic civil rights of women. What happened to him? Did he have a black hole in his brain that day or what? It's all these men dictating to women, you will accept these men in dresses as women. You will accept them into your private spaces. Nobody asked women what they thought. Nobody.
That's the big question, is when are we going to be asked exactly what it is we need in this society to be able to function, to be able to defend our own spaces, to be able to say no, to be able to have control of our lives. And that's a very rare thing right now. And there's a lot of silencing around radical feminists in particular. I found...
and that's another thing that bothers me is I speak up under my own name. You know my face, you know my name. All these people who go online and who threaten, all manner of horrible things against somebody. Look, if you're going to really want to hurt somebody, you're not going to broadcast it on social media. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
These people count on women being intimidated. And all I can say to women who want to stand up and speak out is refuse to be intimidated. Freedom of speech is for all of us, not just for autogynephilic males identifying as trans. Okay? And the idea that a woman should be fired because she does not accept the false science surrounding the transgender issue is something that needs to be challenged. I wish I could find 1 million women or 2 million women who would donate exactly $1 each to be put in a war chest to help women who get threatened with firing and stuff to be able to hire a good attorney and fight back. I view this also as identity theft as well. These men are stealing our identity. I think it can be challenged in court. I think it can be won. But the problem with it is most women don't have the wherewithal, and it's going to take a bunch of us to contribute one small dollar to be put in a very transparent fund to help women fight back. And I think it could be won once it's done that way.
That's a brilliant idea. Do you have an idea about how that would form? Would it be around Hands Across the Aisle? Is there another organization?
I think Hands Across the Aisle would be a very good vehicle for it because, Kaylee called me when she learned. Are you ready for this? Breitbart posted an article about the fact that I was ousted from the Grand Marshal of the parade's position. And she said, would you come out to Seattle and speak? And, I was leery. She was very honest and out front with me that she was a conservative Christian woman, and hither previous to this, my contacts with very conservative Christian people were not all that joyous and wonderful. but I decided there was something about it, and I decided to risk. And I went out there, and I've seen a thing or two in my life, and I've never seen anything as hellacious as that speaking engagement. They would not allow us to speak. They screamed at us. They cursed at us. They swore at us. It was the most vile thing I've ever seen in my entire life. As a result, Kaylee and I communicated with one another, and I said to her, you know, we may not agree on everything, but we agree on this issue about, you know, biology isn't bigotry. What can we do? You know, how can we work together? What do we need to do? So we talked about it, and we came up with Hands Across the Aisle Women in Coalition. And so she and I founded it, and we started letting people we thought would be interested, you know, women, to let them know about this. And slowly but surely we garnered members, and Kaylee and I went and spoke in Texas. We spoke at the Q Convention, which is a big Christian convention in Nashville, Tennessee. We did the video in Washington, D.C. With the Heritage Foundation. It's been very, very interesting. And so I think we would be ideal for it because our goal and our word to our members is transparency. We have nothing to hide. We have nothing that we're ashamed of. If you have any questions, ask us. It's total transparency. And I wish we could do it. You know, we'd have to get a 501c3, what do you call it, ruling or...
Designation, perhaps?
Designation,
yeah.
Thank you. Because I think the dollar should be tax deductible, of course. And I'm not an attorney. I was a teacher of English. I need some help in terms of how to get that 501, you know, C3, except that we might not want to do that either because you can't do politicking with a 501c3.
Right.
There's a 501c4. There's a couple of other designations that we might want to think about because we are political in the sense that we are challenging these laws that allow men into women's most intimate spaces. But I think it could be done. I wish I knew somebody who was a legal beagle who could help me out.
Yeah. And that's something that I think very much needs to be done because women are losing jobs, women are losing the ability to even speak, the ability to have differing points of view, and it's very disabling, and it's happening. And I know it is because I've been deplatformed, and I know other women that have been under attack. So I think that it's a brilliant idea, and it's a matter of how do we join together to say no to those assaults. And I just wanted to ask you too, do you have any other ideas about how we can build coalitions? You've done some extraordinary work here, and how we can unify and what we need to unify around.
I think you have to find common ground. Now, Hands Across the Aisle works on the trans issue and the trans issue only. We don't talk about gay marriage. We don't talk about the abortion issue. Okay, we are a coalition dealing with the trans issue. Mayhap, after we've beaten that issue and it's no longer germane to women, mayhap we may find some other common ground that we choose to work on. So, excuse me, my first suggestion is when you want to make a coalition, find out where you have common ground, and then respect that common ground and limit your coalition to whatever it is you wish to challenge and take on. I think conservative women and progressive women have a lot to lose in terms of the trans issue, and I think it was interesting when Kaylee and I spoke at the Q Convention in Nashville. There were people who were just horrified at the information we provided. They didn't know. And so you have to go about doing education of members, and you have to be transparent. And one other thing. Both Kaylee and I have removed posts from our Facebook page that were inappropriate. And I have done it to people from my side of the aisle, and she has done it to people from her side of the aisle, because we don't want to muddy the waters. I mean, I recently unfriended somebody who just, for some reason or another, she was from my side of the aisle, but she liked to attack me and argue with me. And I finally had enough, and I had boundaries, and I let go, because it just wasn't worth it to me to keep on arguing with this woman. Is she still a member of HANS? Yeah, she is, but she's not my friend anymore. And so you have to have clear boundaries. You got to have rules. You know, no, you can't attack somebody. You have to stay to the issue. You have to be civil. We repost our rules for Hands Across the Aisle all the time, just to remind people that this is how it is here, and if you don't agree, then, you know, maybe you will find another place that's okay for you. The coalition can be made. You just have to have patience, and you have to remain civil, and you have to provide education.
So there's a baseline code of conduct and
Yes.
and an agreed goal, very
Yes.
specific goal, agreed goal, and you stay away from distractions and you center on that. And, you know, with conservative women and people that are pro-abortion, you may not have that shared goal. You know, that's a different coalition building effort.
I mean, there are plenty of things. I think that conservative women and progressive women, after we've, you know, taken out the dead horse of the trans issue, you know, they might want to work together on prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might want to work together on male pattern violence. I mean, those are two things that I think we might find common ground on. Because male pattern violence, I mean, in 2015, 1,600 plus women were murdered in the United States alone. That rate is going up. I would think that even conservative women would be concerned about the idea that women are just willy-nilly being murdered by men or beaten and raped. I would imagine that's common ground.
That's just horrifying and obvious common ground that we can all share. Yep, easy to see.
You know, my commitment is I will go anywhere, any place, anytime to speak. I'm retired and I live on Social Security, so you might have to provide me my transportation to wherever and a bed to sleep in. I'm going on 70 years of age. I'm not okay about sleeping on floors anymore.
Yeah.
But I fear no man. I fear no woman. I fear no God.
Mm.
You know, I have nothing to lose.
Yep.
So that makes me very dangerous.
And we all have everything to gain by being that fierce and having that much integrity. It's hard when you're under assault to find that place of fearlessness. And I so appreciate hearing your voice and that ferocity in your voice and that model about how we can go there and get out of this quagmire of feeling trapped and helpless.
If the women who were fearful, if we could somehow, I'd like to say, an emergent, a TAC squad of women, TAC, not attack, but a TAC squad, tactical squad. You know, okay, so something happens to somebody in California. She's threatened with firing. You know, it would be cool to have a tactical squad of women to stand up and say, okay, you say you want to fire her, for why? Here's a counter to your reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
And then go to the media. And my word is howl like crazy. Howl loud and howl long and make them pay attention.
It reminds
you have to stop being nice. We have to get uppity again.
Right.
I mean,
right.
if this law in California passes that makes it a hate crime, a jailable offense to misgender somebody, I will go to jail.
And
I will.
It's reminding me of one of the chants that's out on the street right now. It's kind of like, when women are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back, kind of thing. You know, just like have an emergency response network of, like you said, this huge coalition and that war chest you were talking about before, where we have the legal wherewithal to say, no, that's not going to happen, and this is our community. Yep. Thank you, Miriam. Do you have any last words? This has been a great conversation.
Mostly that women need to stop being nice. We need to get uppity again. Because if not, we will see ourselves, our words, our writers, our poets, our musicians, our very culture erased. We will see the very words for who and what we are as women: vagina, breast, labia, menstruation. We will see the very words that we use nowadays to talk about who and what we are erased. And what then? Is that what women will become, is breeders? Stand up, fight back, get uppity. Don't back down, back up, give in, or give up. Get up and get out.
Perfect. Thank you. The DGR Women's Caucus thanks you for listening to this interview with Miriam Ben-Shalom.